Welcome, welcome. This is Marnie Swedberg, and I'm excited to have you with us this afternoon. We're going to be talking about entitlement. And this is kind of an interesting topic, like whoever thinks about entitlement, except that it can have a crushing effect on your performance, on your freedom, on your joy, if you are feeling entitled and not getting what you think you deserve. So during this hour, our guest, Bob Brumm, is going to join me in just a moment. We're going to be talking about the dark side of entitlement and also 3 actions to flip your perspective from wounded to blessed, and what that actually means and how you can do it. The difference between existing and living and how to make the leap. 3 keys to taking positive action versus making excuses. How to embrace your true value versus living off the value of others. The easiest way to make a difference for yourself and others. The reality about participation trophies and when they should be used. And then 2 things required if you really want to soar. Our guest today is Bob Brumm. He's an accomplished speaker, author, and encouragement engineer serving corporate, sales, universities, charitable, and youth organizations. He inspires passion and commitment through sincerity. Thank you and welcome to you, Bob Brumm. You are the encouragement engineer.
Thank you, Marnie. I appreciate the time to be here today, and I look forward to our talk.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking about the entitlement ceilings for successful living, freedom to soar beyond expectations. And I want to start with just talking about entitlement. So you and I were talking about this before we came on air. It is kind of a different topic. And I'm excited to dive into it because I feel like it's kind of a hidden pitfall that we all fall into. And you might not think that you feel entitled about anything, but as we go through this hour, you might find out that you do. So I'm going to pass it to you, Bob. Tell us what entitlement is.
Well, thank you, Marnie. Entitlement is, I believe, and I'm going to read you a definition, believing yourself to be inherently deserving of privileges or special treatment. But here's the reality, and I'm going to burst somebody's bubble right off the bat. Okay, nobody's entitled to anything. We're all Homo sapiens walking upright. What gives us any advantage to have special privilege over the next person? We've got to look at this in a bigger scale. We're all humans. We're all people. We need to remember that, especially in the times we're in today. I think it comes out a little more. We're all people first. There's no difference between just because you have a title of something in front of your name, you're still a person. The president of the United States is still a person. The president of every other country is still a person. We all bleed red when we get cut, and we all cry when our feelings are hurt. In that, there's not that big of a difference between every human being on this planet. And we need to remember that. There's not necessarily, just because you've done something in your career that allows you to have more publicity, good or bad, there's no reason that you would get special or should get special treatment, in my opinion. But I know there's others that would, counter state that, but I believe that we're all here, we're all human beings, and we need to remember that, because I think that helps us to realize what everybody's going through and how people are as people first.
Yeah. So people just recognition that it's actually an even playing field as far as our souls go. We are all just people.
Yeah.
And yet in life, what happens is because it's not an even playing field in how much privilege we have, opportunity we have. I mean, my friends in Kitale, Kenya, Africa, they are hard pressed to get running water.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, my privilege level is so high comparatively. And so because we've had these things given to us,
right,
we come to feel very entitled about them, like, well, I should definitely have these advantages or something is wrong.
Well, and it's interesting you say that, because what if everybody took a summer and worked on a farm, okay, got back to basics a little bit, put away the cell phone. We worry about, our cell phone doesn't break. I have to get the next model. That's a first world problem, right? Like you said, people in Kenya, they're worrying about running water. That's a vital thing they need. They need water to live, to survive. If you watch some of these shows on TV that, naked and afraid or whatever. Fire and water are the key things. You get back to basics. You don't even have clothes on your back and you're trying to find the basics. What are we doing to get back to those basics? To remember we're all human first, that we're a being that God created us on this earth, and he didn't make anybody any better than the rest.
So
Okay.
the dark side, I think the dark side of entitlement is the reality that when we walk around with this subconscious mentality that because I'm an American, or because I'm a woman, or because I'm white, or because I'm Dave's wife, or whatever,
Right.
I am due certain things. What happens there is that when these little expectations are threatened, or somebody presses in or challenges them, we actually can really get messed up in our thinking about that, instead of recognizing that they were a gift from the beginning. I think Job's story,
Yeah.
when everything was taken away, the wife says, "Oh, this is awful, curse God and die." And Job says, "Naked I came, naked I'll go, blessed be the name of the Lord." Big difference in responses.
Yeah. And to take a piece of that idea, I've never seen a U-Haul following a hearse.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Like you said, naked come in, naked go out. We don't take it with us anywhere. So, whatever you gain, if you can, give some away, help others, understand that people, not only yourselves, if you haven't had hardships, other people have. If you want to experience that, talk to them, maybe go do what they had to go through. It is a reality check, and it starts up here. The mindset to know that others have done differently than you, and that, they may have gone through some hard times. Our forefathers didn't have running water in the United States. That was a process that we learned, that we developed, and that we integrated into our society. People before us had a harder time than we have it. So understand that is a big knowledge piece there.
I can already tell that we're going to be poking the bear all the way through this interview here, but it's okay. It's good. So I don't know where everybody's at with whether you feel like you should be wearing masks or not. But when I go to put on my mask, which, by the way, I hate wearing a mask. I hate not being able to see other people's smiles. I hate them not being able to see mine. I hate not being able to breathe freely. I hate it all.
Yeah.
But when I go to put on my mask, which I do faithfully when I'm out and about with people, I think, when I'm trying to put it into perspective, I think of all of our healthcare workers who are suiting up like space people in order to survive this thing. Right. And I think, it is a small thing to put on a mask. It's a small inconvenience. But we've got a lot of people who are like really refusing to be inconvenienced.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of scenarios going on out there, but I just challenge you that the mask is just like the example of this. In our lives, we have all these areas where we will not be inconvenienced, where we will not lower ourselves to do this or subject ourselves to do this. And I propose that it's really hurting us in our lives and our ministries to not be willing to say, naked I came, naked I go, blessed be the name of the Lord.
Well, and it's interesting you bring that up too, because what are mission trips? That's a piece of time where you can do just that. You go back to helping somebody that may have gone through some hard times, and you see the reality of how some others may live. And you're up there sweating on a roof, putting on new shingles or tar or painting or doing whatever you need to do to help that person or that area. Okay, things happen. And the idea to help people, that's what we need to look at, is how can we help each other? Because this idea of entitlement doesn't work. We're better than that. And it starts here. We've got to realize we're better than that, and that we can be loving people to each other to grow and have a better society.
And we were actually born to not just have ourselves be gratified and satisfied at all times. We were actually born to be the hands and feet, the hugs and the arms of God toward every person we meet. So let's talk about 3 actions to flip your perspective from wounded to blessed. So a lot of times you're like, yeah, but my life is really hard too, Bob. And so I deserve all this, whatever. So how do we flip that switch in our thinking?
That's always a good question because I've got 3 boys. I've heard that a lot. And you've got children too.
Wonderful.
Yeah. It's like, wait a second. You know, let's realize the benefit of the effort, the benefit of the hard work, the benefit of, going through something that will help you to grow. Think of it as working out, because we want to get stronger in our minds first, because our minds can direct us to great thoughts, great abilities. We'll try things, we'll learn things, we'll talk to people. And that's where it starts, is turning that around in knowing that, like I said before, we're all equal to begin with. Okay. And that we have the ability to do great things. We have the ability within us, given to us by our creator, that we can do awesome things. It's going to be hard. It won't be easy. We won't know how. We might be scared, but we can get through that. In the Bible, it says, do not fear. Well, I think it's 365 times, I believe. How about that? We can't stop ourselves from those human fears or those ideas. But what the reality is, we're only born with 3 fears: the fear of falling, the fear of loud noises, and the fear of shadows. Other than that, we learn everything. And if we can learn something, we can unlearn that. And we can set that aside so we can grow and we can be better. So that's another thing. Is 1, remember, we're all on an equal plane. 2 is set aside the fear, knowing we're greater than that fear, knowing that we have greatness within us, that we can go and do great things for others and ourselves. I'm not saying, you've got to keep your house up. Okay. If you want it to look decent, you got to keep it up. You got to mow the lawn. You got to trim the bushes. You got to paint the house. You got to make sure the roof's not leaking. There's all kinds of things. And, we've got to sometimes go through the trials. Don't be afraid to go through those trials. And a third thing would be just knowing that, there's other people out there that probably have a little bit worse than you. And that's a different perspective, because you may only have a loaf of bread in the cabinet. Somebody doesn't have that. Always keep that perspective that you're doing okay if you have, in the US, most of us have a roof over our head. We have running water. What a concept. Whether it's in an apartment, whether it's in a rental house, whether it's in a house you own, whether it's in 2 houses you own, it doesn't matter. You have running water. You don't have to worry about, okay, where am I going to go to the bathroom today, because there's no piping for that type of thing. Be thankful for what you have, no matter what it is. So that would be one of the third things, is that thankfulness.
Yeah.
Gratitude.
We have a homeless friend who's frequently at our house, and he always says, you can't starve in St. Pete. That's one thing for sure. You can't starve in St. Pete. So even if you don't have a roof over your head, the reality is that God takes care of all of his children, and there's so much to be grateful for. I love that. Yeah. What's the difference between existing and living?
That's always a good one, because I'm just getting through the day. The Eeyore syndrome, I call it. Oh, always me. Gotta do this. I gotta do that. Well, do you, or do you get to? What's your perspective on that? Living is knowing that, what? Yes, I might have to work for somebody I don't want to work for, but you're getting a paycheck, and you're able to pay your bills, and you're able to provide for your family. Knowing that and taking that idea and turning it around to say, hey, you know what? I'm breathing. What about that? Cool. I woke up today. It's not, I got to go to work. No, you get to wake up. Awesome. Are you saying thank you when you first get up in the morning? What about that? That's living. Living is, no matter what happens to you, you have the ability to look at that and say, I'm available to do what I need to do. Okay. The other day, or a couple of weeks ago, as an example, I went out and one of my sprinkler heads wasn't working. I know, first world problem again. But I thought, okay, let's change the sprinkler head. $5 part, go out, get the new sprinkler head, go to put it in, turn it on. Well, no, it's not the sprinkler head. The whole pump wasn't working. The pump went out. Yeah, I could have gone into the, oh my. No, okay, I can handle this, because about 3 months earlier, my pool pump went out and I had to change that. So, it's just these things that come up. Yeah, exactly. Just add it to the experience. And I knew what to do to change it. It's just a matter of timing. And that sprinkler head turned into more money than just cost of a sprinkler head. But the thing was, I knew, okay, I can overcome this. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't critical. My water to the house was still running, so I could take a shower, wash my hands, etc. It was just for the lawn. But I was able to fix that by knowing that, I can handle this. It wasn't what I expected. And life always does that to you. When you're thinking you're going to get one thing, God says, let's have some fun here. No, and something else happens. But be prepared for those changes and be adaptable. Be ready to pivot. Our current situation now has made a lot of businesses and a lot of our society had to pivot and had to look at things a lot differently. And that's okay. That allows us to learn, allows us to grow, it allows us to adapt to what might be better for the society as a whole.
Right. Yeah. So one of the things I believe scripturally is that in every circumstance, there is a seed of potential. And that can be a seed that can grow up for more trouble or a seed that can grow up for more good. And so inside of this COVID disaster, there is so much pain and loss here. There is, and we don't just stick our heads in the sands and say that's not happening. It is happening.
Right.
A lot of businesses have gone under already. Many more will probably. A lot of you have people in your families, friends, close friends like me that have experienced COVID and or died. So what we say though is that in this situation, there is the seed of potential for good or evil going forward. And what we want to do is we want to water and put sun on our thinking on the good and let God bring all the good that he would want to bring out of this. And it's just like a seed. I mean, in the big scope of all of history, even though this is huge, it's not really all that big.
No.
There's been bigger things.
Yeah.
So God can bring good out of this.
And it's interesting you talk about the growth and planting analogy because I grow palm trees from seed. And so that exact scenario is what I see in the backyard all the time is, okay, you plant a little seed. And then, this thing after a few months, all of a sudden the littlest, smallest little part comes up and then a little more and then it gets some more and it grows. And all of a sudden you start to have more and more growth. And I've got several foxtails in my backyard that have grown over 10, 12 years, and they're probably 15 feet high, 15, 20 feet high now. And soon they'll get the buds of the seeds. So they'll have more seeds. So that one seed can provide immeasurable amounts of more palm trees and growth and opportunities. And what is life giving us that? Like you said, in those opportunities, we could get mad and curse everything, and that doesn't do you any good because then you carry that with you. And it's like this, your stomach's in knots and you're all tensed up. Okay, maybe you want to do that for 5-10 minutes, if that. Then let it go. Really, what good is it hanging on to that? Okay, are we carrying around 30-pound dumbbells in our hands? No. Okay, then let the stuff go. We've got to let it go.
Well, and the most beautiful thing is that God says, give it to him. We don't just have to pretend it doesn't exist. We actually have something positive, proactive, an action we can do is give it to him and say, I trust you with my future. So what are 3 keys to taking positive action versus making excuses? And honestly, during this season, it's been, it's affected our minds in a different way than we're used to because of the incredible quantity of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's part of it is, unfortunately, I've been able to get a lot of projects done around the house. I said that unfortunately because usually it's my wife's idea. But the idea is, we can make excuses and all it does is delay the inevitable. Okay, something breaks. Oh, well, I'll fix that later. Will you? Really? Do you have the discipline to get there and fix it? Because you know how to do it. So just get up and do it. And then guess what? When you take that action, wow, I did that. Look at that. It's pretty cool. And there's, some key things with that is excuses don't help you. They hinder you. And it's another crutch to lean on. And then all of a sudden your back will start to ache because you're leaning over so far because of this excuse. Yeah. Why? Why are we doing that? Put the excuse down, walk upright, and go forth on that challenge. Go forth on that idea of, what can we do? We can learn about it. Today we have all kinds of technology. The kids, the first thing they do is pull out their phone and they YouTube something. My son did that when he had an alternator break in his truck. And he called me up and, of course, needed the money for it. So Dad comes out to pay for it. But he's on YouTube. He already knew how to do it by watching a video. Like, okay, I've never done that before, but that's what they're doing. They're taking that action, and that gives them the ability to learn, the ability to fix something faster than maybe people in our generation that say, well, I don't know how to do that. Maybe I need to call an expert. And there's nothing wrong with that. But we have the ability to take those steps. And, again, I don't know how to do it. That's an excuse. There's all kinds of knowledge out there. You can ask somebody, you can YouTube it. Our technology allows so much of the knowledge to be at our fingertips. And a third thing is, like you said, knowing there's a bigger power. That's a great one. Prayer is so vital. I start my day with it. I end my day with it. I do it during the day because we can't handle it. These shoulders aren't as big as I want them to be. I'm not Atlas. I can't carry the weight of the world on these shoulders. Some of the problems that we run across, they're heavy. Hand them to God. Let him help us to guide. He'll give us the ideas. He'll give us inspiration. He'll give us people to be in contact with that can help us with the issues that were in front of us. We may not know who's out there. He does.
Yeah, I like that too. And I was thinking about, if you don't know how to fix it, that can be an excuse. But the one thing that you can know is that you can ask God for the next step, even if you don't know how to do it or you don't. I was just talking to somebody before we came on here. She's planning this huge online event. And she said she was so intimidated when God put it in her heart. How am I going to be able to do that? I don't even know how to do that. And God just prompted in her spirit, it's going to be like putting together a jigsaw puzzle. Wow. I got the cover. You're going to have to keep coming to me for the next steps. And that's how life can feel, especially right now. I feel like there's so much uncertainty that if we don't just trust that God's got the big picture well in hand, then it can just stop us from taking any forward action. And that's a loss. That I feel like God feels that loss just like a parent who would say, do you want to go get something great? Here's the money. Here's the car. Go get something great. And the child would say, I just don't know if I really should. I just don't know if I can trust you. I just don't know if this is, right. I feel like God's just like, come on, you guys.
I hear you because, you mentioned that as a parent, you see that. And I reference that in one of my books is the idea of the helicopter syndrome. Think of it as we're in a helicopter, and as we become parents, we start to rise up above these bushes called life, and we're going down a path in amongst these bushes, and we see our kids doing it, and they may take a left turn. And you're like, no, that's not, no, you don't want to do that, but they don't want to believe us. No, don't turn right. I've been down this road before. It doesn't end well. And they don't want to hear that. Sometimes they have to experience it, and we're the same way. We, it's that mortal person that says, I'm not sure. Wait a second. This is this is the being, if you will, if you want to call God a being. It's a spirit that created the world, created the sun, the moon. Those are pretty big things. I think he can handle the situation I'm going through.
Right. He does have perfect perspective. You think about that as you get higher in a helicopter or in an airplane or in a rocket ship or whatever, your perspective changes, and God has perfect perspective. And it's so wonderful that the Holy Spirit wants to be our counselor and our coach and our consultant and help us to know what to do next. Let's talk about how to embrace your true value versus living off the value of others.
I think that's important, especially with younger generation. A lot of times you'll see, well, my dad did this, and they want to ride on those coattails. Wait a second. You didn't do anything for that. And the value that you have within you could be different than your parents. Your parents may have had a value to, open a clothing shop, and they made the clothing and they did this, and that timing that they did it in, it worked for them, and they did very well financially, and maybe we're able to provide a house and provide you with a college education and whatnot. That doesn't mean that needs to keep going, because as you're an adult, as you learn different things, as the times have changed, you're a different person than what your parents were. You need to make your own path. You need to get out there, and your value is going to be, every person's value is different. It's a great value, but we've got to identify that value. We've got to identify what that greatness is. And that could be much different than a previous generation. Just because a previous generation did something that was very successful does not entitle us by any means or allow us to take what they did. you see this a lot in estate settlements. People, oh yeah, all of a sudden they show up when person's passed. But where were you while they were sick? Where were you at that near the end? Did you really, they may have accumulated some big wealth. Were you a part of that? Did you put your hands in that to make that for them? They did. It's their decisions. When my dad was coming close to the end of his life, he was trying to make sure his wills and everything were in order. And one of the things he kept saying, well, what do you want? I said, Dad, it's not mine to take any claim to. It's yours. I don't care if you spend every dime. You're entitled to do that. I'm making my own way. And that maybe that's a mentality I had because of the way I was raised. But I think we all need to step back and realize that we have greatness within us. Don't take that handout. Don't expect anything from anybody else. Make your own way. Get after that knowledge, okay, and do something with it. Get these hands dirty,
Yeah, it's interesting. As both Dave and my parents got older and then passed away, as my mom was coming to the end of her life, well, even earlier, it's interesting how many times I would hear other people say, my siblings talk about who gets this or who gets that or whatever. And I was like, wow, we simply never have those conversations. It's never a thought that I'm entitled to something because I'm a child of this person. That means I'm entitled to something. It is all seen as a gift, or when something came to us after someone passed away, it's just this wonderful blessing and gift. It was not something we expected or hoped that they would sacrifice for our sakes. I think entitlement steals the joy that God intends us to have when someone blesses us.
Definitely, because it takes, and sometimes you'll see this over trivial things, furniture, stuff.
Yeah, stuff.
It doesn't matter. It's going to rot.
Right.
A car is going to break down. The couch is going to get worn out. It's going to end up in the garbage long before that person ever wanted. It's the point that they, what is another thing that maybe you gained from them? And my aunt helped me to realize this after my dad passed. She goes, you know what? No matter what happens, you can't take away what he gave you inside your heart.
Right.
Wow. Yep. You can't.
And that's actually the true lasting value of the person's life. And then anything else is just bonus. It's just bonus. It's like not to be fought over, not to be lusted after, whatever. And certainly, not to interfere with the relationships you have with other people. All of this is so much of a gift. So what is the easiest way to make a difference for yourself and others?
Easiest way to make a difference for yourself and others. One is to, again, I'll go back to the point of be positive, think positive, because that helps you to see opportunities. That helps you to see what's out there. Okay, if you're having trouble, something comes along, okay, your tire, goes flat. You don't know how to change it. Okay, guess what? You're going to have to either YouTube it or do whatever you do as a younger person. Call somebody. Okay, talk to somebody. Oh my, you might have to talk on the phone. I know that's hard for some people instead of texting, but you will have to talk to somebody. You'll learn something. And that's what's different is you need to be able to accept the idea that, okay, things are going to happen. I've got to learn through it. I've got to grow through it. And I've got to become a better person and share that with others. When I lost my mother when I was 6 years old. And as I went through that, I had other elder parents and grandparents that passed away along the way. That was just life events that occur. But I realized as I got older that was my purpose, to help people to see a positive perspective, help them to see that idea that, we can get through things with our perspective. It starts here. God gave us a perspective. He said, don't worry, right? Don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow has its own worries. Do not fear. He tells us these things. If you go to that book, there's a lot in there on ways to live your life. There's 66 books that can tell you good and the bad. And guess what? It's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to get this worry out of our system that we don't need to carry with us. Why carry that? That's a big difference. Give it, like we've talked about before, give it to God. That's a worry you don't need, and be thankful for breathing and for waking up in a day.
wherever you go, that's where you are, and whoever you are, that's who you share. And so, like, if you're grape, that's what you're sharing. I mean, that's the gift that you brought to the party was griping. And
Right. I
honestly,
like to laugh and smile, so being on things like this is great.
yeah, and we actually have a choice about this. The difference that we can make is to actually receive the grace of God ourselves in order that we might be able to share it with others, receive the love of God ourselves so we can share it with others. You cannot give away something you don't have.
Right.
Yeah. So we need God's love and life flowing through us, and then we can give that away. You actually talk a little bit about participation trophies. So tell us what a participation trophy is and what your take is on these.
And here's another poke at the bear. Yeah. Well, and I laugh because our society has gotten to the point, in my opinion, that we get a participation trophy for breathing practically. But wait a second. Aren't we alive and God gave us breath? God gave us the ability to breathe. So why do we get a trophy for doing something that comes to us from a bigger source? Why do we get a participation trophy for being on a team? You know, it used to be, and I'll go back. I know people have said this. Well, it used to be in my day. When you were on a team, you participated. You went to practice. You played in the games. You either won or lost, but the losing team usually didn't get the trophy. Okay, you got the experience of playing the game. You got the experience of learning and growing and knowing what to do how to act when you lost. Well, today it seems like anybody's lost that idea, and I don't believe a participation trophy should be given out. It doesn't make a lot of sense, because what it does is it doesn't allow people to then understand the experience of loss, of hardship, of dealing with that, and understanding that, you know what, some days there's going to be teams that play better and they're just going to beat us, and you have to be able to deal with that here. It's not, on the field, it's not the way the bat was swung, the glove was done, or the game was done. But how do you deal with that mentally? There was many baseball games coming home that with my boys, it was not a fun ride home. But they learned, there's points that somebody's going to beat you, and there's going to be days when you win over the other team. And putting in that effort, realizing what it takes to work hard, to achieve something, that's what people need to realize is the real trophy. Is, I don't care if you give me a certificate, a plaque, or whatever. I'm going to put in my effort because of the way I believe it pans out. I understand the value of it. I understand how it helps me learn. I understand the benefit it's going to give to others. I don't need a trophy to say, hey, you've been here for so many days and you're part of this team. That's great. I appreciate the input, but I'm doing what I do because that's the way I am. It's ingrained in me.
When we get all focused on the prize, it becomes all consuming.
Look at that. Where did you go?
Yeah, I know. All we can see. And it's when we fold our hands together and give that, of course we want to go for the prize. Absolutely, we're going for the prize. But we hold that in an open hand with saying, okay, God, I'm focusing on you.
Yeah.
So whether I get the trophy or not, it's still a winning experience. And I love what you said there. And I was thinking about, even if we don't allow children, if we don't allow people to actually experience, I didn't win,
right?
Life doesn't work, because you can't all have exactly the same thing. Like, in my mind, some of the biggest challenges I've had with God is comprehending how he can be okay with me sitting in a beautiful home with running water, with air conditioning, with windows that keep the bugs out,
right,
and millions, billions of people around the world not having such luxury. Yeah. How is he okay with that? He is okay with it. There is a way for him to be okay with this. And when we don't allow ever ourselves to experience loss of any kind, we never experience the sense of not being the winner, not being the one to have those things that we feel very entitled to have.
Right. And that's where we go back to the entitlement thing. It's and what you mentioned was critical too, because it was interesting as you did this, and I thought, okay, we're praying to God, and that's great. There's only one way out of here. We're not going to be alive for it, but the prize on the other side will be great. But we have to give up a lot to get there. That gives up all this stuff we have here, this life we have here, to be that greatness that God has for us once we're done with our journey here.
So when I think about participation trophies, the one time that I feel like it's for sure great to do that is with people who are literally handicapped.
Yeah.
They
That's
cannot actually process the reality of losing or winning.
right.
And you see them, and we can learn so much from them, because when they're running in the Special Olympics and someone beside them trips and falls, they don't keep going for the prize.
No, they stop and help the person next to them. Yeah.
They all stop and huddle around,
Yeah.
make sure and then they all run together forward. We can learn so much, and those are the people that should get participation awards, because honestly, they really don't even care if they win or lose. They're just in it for the journey.
Yeah.
And we can
There's
learn
a lot to learn from them. Yes. There's a lot to learn from them.
Absolutely. So what are the two things required if we really want to soar?
Belief, hard work. Okay. You've got to have belief, not only, I think, in God's vision for us, and that we have greatness and that we have ability, but then you got to understand to take action on that. And that hard work means taking that action and taking those thoughts that are put in our head and making something of it. Okay. Talking to somebody, getting out and making something happen, whether it's on calls like this, just to spread the word, just to get the message out, whether it's going outside and helping a neighbor with weeding some stuff outside, or helping a neighbor with a fence, or doing something in your own yard, or cleaning up the dishes in the sink, whatever the case may be. You've got to make an effort towards that ability, that greatness you have. If you got 10 fingers, if they all work, there's no reason why you can't get out and do something. You can type on a keyboard. Get off the game console. Let's get the Palmolive hands dirty and do something special for our world. We got greatness within us, and God's saying, show that to the world. What are you doing sitting on, the Xbox? Okay, well, if you can do that and show people how to do better on the game, that's a way of showing people. That's a way of teaching. You're spreading some knowledge. But not everybody can do that. So what are you doing that you're offering to get out there and show that value you have? That's where, it's so energetic and so invigorating when you can take something you already know and somebody looks at you and says, how did you do that? Wow. And you enlighten them with that. That's great. Do that. Find that thing that says, I can enlighten somebody with this. And it could be as simple as smiling. Like you said, smiling. I know we're all wearing masks. Hold the door open for somebody. Be polite. Yeah, open your eyes. There you go. So,
yeah, I was thinking one of my favorite verses in the Bible is Hebrews 11:6, and it says, in order to please God, you must exist. You must believe. So faith, you must believe that he exists. And then number 2, believe that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. So I see that as the exact 2 things that you said. First of all, you believe he's there, and then you believe that he is going to reward you for whatever you go out and do on his behalf. He's like just looking, are you going to do something, or are you just going to sit here and wait how things turn out? Come on.
Right. Well, like you said, as a parent, you're giving this child, here's the money, here's the car, go do something.
Go.
Come on.
Scared, right? And it is a lack of faith. It's like you have on the one hand you have fear, and on the other hand you have faith.
Yeah, which is going to be stronger.
A mighty God. He is worthy of our faith, and he wants us to stand up, to get moving, and to get something accomplished. Bob, we are coming to the end of the hour. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, Marnie. I appreciate it so much. It's definitely been a pleasure being on the show and being able to share these ideas with everybody.
Now, your website is Bob Brumm with 2 M's, bobbrummspeaks.com. And when people go over there, what are they going to find, Bob?
They're going to find a plethora of information about my podcast. It's a daily motivational podcast. It comes out 1 minute motivations, as well as I'm putting interviews on there. Marnie, you've been on the Encouragement Engineering podcast. Thank you for that. They'll also find links to my books, links to my social media sites, and check it out. And, sign up there. You can get a free chapter of my latest book, A Positive Purpose, as well. So it's a great site. I'm very proud of that.
Awesome. And do you have a favorite verse for life, or a verse that just comes to mind right now?
Romans 8:28. All good things come to those who love the Lord.
Yep. For God purposes, that there's good in every last thing. Love it. Mine is 2 Corinthians 9:8 in the NIV version. It says that God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that in all things at all times, having everything you need, you may abound in every good work. So I love all the superlatives in there, and how God is just able to help us no matter what we're going through, to be the conduit of his good to come through us to the world. So be that person. Bob, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Marnie. I appreciate it so much.
Yep, and you guys, thank you for being here. We always love to share these with you, and you can learn more about me over at Marnie.com, and Bob, of course, at BobBrummSpeaks.com. Thanks for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and bye-bye.